All right, we got a reaction video. We're gonna be reacting to legendary drops. Baldur's Gate 3 was a wake-up call. Let's go ahead and get right into it.
I believe that we are being misled, misdirected, deceived.
Okay.
And I believe that it's being done on purpose.
Probably.
See, we've had this conversation around Baldur's Gate 3 and the state of AAA gaming for quite a while now. Different content creators that are weighing
Baldur's
in,
Gate 3 is great.
as well as different journalists, sometimes even tweets. But the focus of the conversation continues to shift, and it shifts away from the thing that is the most important part of the entire conversation, and I believe that that's actually being done on purpose, whether some people know it or not. See, Baldur's Gate 3 was a wake-up call, but it's not the first time that we've seen this. We saw the same thing with Elden Ring, a game that was released to high praise.
Okay, let me stop right there. Elden Ring was a wake-up call, or I think it was supposed to be, but game developers didn't actually take anything from that game and applied it, because we've seen this year a lot of unfinished games, a lot of, you know, unplayable games just because of frame issues, whatnot, the game's broken, just stuff like that. And Baldur's Gate, yes, like last year when Elden Ring came out, other studios and developers said, this is unrealistic, you shouldn't expect us to have the same quality, but I think we should. At least the game should be running, you know, it doesn't have to introduce all these big new ideas. That'd be really cool, but at least have a game working, you know? Give a game time.
Reviewed well, and that the players loved. However, it was also a game that was highly criticized by developers and journalists.
Yep.
Judging the game on simple things like UI or its lack of direction in the world, regardless if the players loved those things or not. Elden Ring was a game that was both innovative in its game design and also in its
true design. Elden Ring was beautiful.
It was a game that provided a significant amount of value to the player, and a dense amount of value at that. And that's the word that we keep losing track of. Value. And that's the most important thing to us. Fast forward from Elden Ring to Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, I love this game.
Started about how AAA studios can't be held to the same standards as an independent studio. Journalists, PR agencies, and other institutions dogpiling on the consumer, trying to suppress our outrage in response to the state of the AAA industry. Us asking, why can't you make games like Larian does? And it's not as if we're trying to ask them to do anything new.
Exactly.
We're just asking them to do what they used to do. Many of our favorite games,
make a working
franchises started out as Larian. Passionate studios working on something they love. Making games that they love playing. Making something that others wanted to enjoy. Blizzard, Ubisoft, EA, Microsoft, Take-Two, Bungie,
oh, this
and
making
more
me so sad.
used to be known as the companies that you could always buy something from, and
true.
more times than not, it was going to be one of your greatest experiences and a game of value. Recently, I've seen a few others cover an article from GameDeveloper.com titled...
And that's really sad to think about. Like, those studios really did used to be, you know, the shit. You know, you would, buy a Blizzard game, all your friends would get on and play it. Like, when Overwatch came out, I just remember all my friends playing it. Diablo 4, even this year when it came out, everyone was playing it. I remember when Diablo 3 came out, my uncle and dad were playing it. Like, Blizzard used to be that, and same with, like, Ubisoft, and everyone with Assassin's Creed, EA even. And now we just don't trust these companies.
Is not journalism by developer and journalist Brandon Sheffield. This is in response to Devin Laguirre's video on IGN talking about the shakeup that Baldur's Gate 3 has caused in the development.
What a great video, by the way.
Now, the point of this video isn't to pick apart the article. However, I just want to highlight some of the language that's being used, because it shows just how far we're getting from the root cause of the issue that's upsetting the customer to begin with.
I thought it was a great video.
I'm wondering if we're being misdirected on purpose. Sheffield's article opens up with, there was an opportunity to give players context for why games release the way that they do. But instead, it was designed to incite anger directed at a few devs. So Sheffield opens up with a straw man, misrepresenting not only Devin Laguirre and IGN's video, but also the consumer outrage at the same time. Trying to make us out to be the bad guys, as if we're just directing this at people that are innocent.
Yeah, we're the bad guys.
Shouldn't be to blame for anything. but they know that's not the case. Our anger, our outrage is directed at the companies, not at the guys that are working at the desk.
Yep, the companies.
Furthermore,
exactly.
This also goes to show just the condescending nature of the industry to begin
with. I said this, I know I'm pausing a lot, but I just said this not long ago. We just need to give games time. You know, we give these big games, you know, a deadline on when they should be released, and it's just not good for the game. They release in bad states. Like, Cyberpunk right now is in a great state. People love Cyberpunk, but when it first came out, it was, you know, it wouldn't run on any console. Any console, wouldn't run on PCs. It just was not playable because they needed more time.
With that, we, the consumer, need to be educated on how games are made. And if we're educated, then we'll understand why we don't get finished products, why we have to pay full price for an unfinished game, why we don't get value for the money that we spent. No.
Spending $70 on Jedi Survivor and then not running. LOL.
We don't need to be educated. You need to give us what we paid for.
Exactly.
That's it. How is this acceptable in any other industry? You don't go to a 5-star restaurant, only get half of your food, and then you're expected to be understanding because, oh, well, there's only one cook that night. You don't go to buy a new car and you're told that, oh, we're still working on the seats and the radio. Don't worry.
I go to a dealership, buy a car. Oh, where are the seatbelts? Still working out the kinks. We'll send you some seatbelts in about a month. Just like a patch.
We'll release those to you later. Why is it the expectation that we must still pay full price for a game and also be understanding of the pressures of deadlines, funding, and investor constraints? Furthermore, why is our focus continuously being reverted to the
See, we're not developers. We don't need to worry about those.
You can go to a 5-star restaurant, receive half of the food that you would elsewhere, and still get the value for the food that you paid for. We see this in indie, single, and AA games time and time again. Baldur's Gate 3 is a $60 game, yet it provides the customer with far more value than many of the games that the AAA industry has released over the last few years.
More than just... Dude, Baldur's Gate has so much content. In Act 3 just alone, the main city, it's insane. Like, it's... The fact that it's valued only at $60 is crazy.
And it doesn't ask us for any more money or make any excuses. Even when the conversation first broke out on Baldur's Gate over on Twitter, again, the discussion was boiled down to polish and scope rather than valuable experiences. Why did the players love Elden Ring? It's because they felt that their time was valued playing it. Yep. They felt like they got their money worth out of the money that they spent on the game.
Oh, it was such a good game. The music.
The game.
It's good. Oh, it's a beautiful game.
We're told these PR lines from publishers and AAA developers. We're sorry. We're listening. We hear you. But they're not. Because if they were...
Yeah, the new trend this year is a game coming out, and then a week later, the studio releasing an apology letter saying, sorry, our game sucks.
Listening, then they would understand that we're not doing this just because we're trying to complain. No, we're doing this because we want to save them. They're the makers of some
Yeah, we're not wanting to complain. We want to play your games.
But the problem is that the more profit-driven that they become, the further they get away from the passion of making games in the first place. It's like a gem collector turned mining outfit. They used to do it for the love of the gems that they were collecting, but now they're just mining for every resource they possibly can get out of it. And now all they're going to be left with is rocks until the eventual collapse of the mine. Sheffield goes on to explain the rocks that we get, saying, in abstract, here's a big part of it. Games release in imperfect states because devs either run out of money or shareholders of their parent company mandate that the game must come out in a certain window, which devs have no control over.
Yes, they don't.
They run out of money trying to make the best game possible in the least amount of time. Devs rarely control their own budget and are trying to make as much cool stuff as they can with the time that they're allotted. In short, for one reason or another, they are often forced to start selling the game in order to pay for the completion of the game. This has been done through DLC, patches, early access, and yes, even microtransactions for ages because of rising expectations for AAA and because big studios are beholden to financial year results and reporting to their investors. Devs burn through their life force trying to make this happen, and it's upsetting to see this brought up with absolute incuriosity. And this is it. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This misunderstanding that we, the consumer, blame the developers that are working at the desks when in fact it's the company who we direct our dissatisfaction towards. We see it for what it is. Productivity being pushed by overpaid CEOs and the shareholders they answer to.
We've known this for years.
Want to provide as little value as possible to the consumer for as cheaply as possible while also selling it for as much money as they possibly can. Now,
these game developers really have to learn from what Baldur's Gate did. They really do if they want us to keep buying their games. Because I was to the point where I didn't even want to buy another Call of Duty game. Because what I was playing just wasn't what it used to be. And not even what it used to be. It just wasn't good. Especially when Warzone 2 came out. At least that was free. But it just wasn't. It was so laggy. It was not finished. So it just makes me not want to play Call of Duty anymore, you know what I mean? And same with Assassin's Creed. People used to love the game, but now where the game's going in unfinished, I don't know if they're unfinished in Assassin's Creed, but they're not listening to their community. They're just pumping it full of microtransactions. That's what I've heard.
Now even Sheffield is sold on the corporate narrative that it is our responsibility as the consumer to soak up the full game price so that they can finish making a full game later, just to appease investors, make up for their poor planning, their misuse of resources, and their lack of vision within their leadership. Moreover, why are we giving microtransactions a pass? Like, oh, guys, you know, it's totally wholesome. They're just doing it because they need to be able to fund the game.
I mean, but if you think about it, too, if you were making a game, wouldn't you put microtransactions in your game? Or a battle pass? It's smart. I mean...
And, you know, keep the servers up and things like that. When we know that's not the case. Otherwise, if it was, then why are they using such manipulative tactics when they're using microtransactions in the first place? Things like loot boxes, locking valuable items behind battle passes, making some of the best cosmetics in the game only purchasable from the shop. They know the tricks that they're doing.
See, that's an issue, though. If I were to do a battle pass in a game or just anything, I would do it cosmetic related only. Or nothing that gives you a boost over the free-to-play players. I think that is where like consumers are getting mad as well. Is that, you know, there's pay to win. Pay to win's always been an issue.
Skating different currencies within the game from our...
And that's what sorry, I haven't paused again, but that's what I really liked about Diablo. They had boosts in the battle pass, but even the free players could get them. So it's just a win-win for everyone. Cosmetics for the premium if you pay, and that's what I would do because people like cosmetics. Valorant does it, you know, Fortnite.
Actual dollar to make sure we don't know how things actually add up. If it was being done for such wholesome reasons, then why are you implementing it in such an unwholesome way? I think that's
that's
the case. That's
what I was trying to explain is do it in a wholesome way, not unwholesome.
How about the $1.2 billion that Activision Blizzard made in 2021 on microtransactions alone? Did that money go into making Diablo 4 a complete game? Or Overwatch, for that matter?
Ooh.
No. It didn't.
No.
I think Xbox perfectly encapsulates what's wrong with the gaming industry and how it's losing focus. Don't get me wrong. I love Xbox. I love Game Pass. I think it's one of the best things that the entire industry could do for consumers. However, Xbox is putting all of their focus into how they deliver games and stay ahead of the market rather than making sure that they are delivering high-quality games, great games, and games of value.
It's true.
They chased the smoke of live service titles pressuring Arcane to make Redfall. They neglected the oversight of 343 working on Halo Infinite, just assuming that they would get it right even after consecutive failures
they have
to
never
capture
made
the magic of Halo.
Yep, they've never made a good Halo game.
They let Halo become an afterthought in the gaming industry. One of the most influential games of all time. The game that popularized FPS controls on a controller. A game that at one time was a pop culture phenomenon. And now what happened?
No one thinks
How
about
did
it.
that happen?
That's
Because they were more
crazy.
concerned with becoming the Netflix of gaming. And it's not just Xbox whose focus has shifted. It's almost every single AAA company. Epic Games doesn't even make games anymore. They just run off of the fumes of Fall Guys, Fortnite, and Rocket League microtransactions. EA pimps out every single game in their library.
To be fair, Epic puts a lot of time into Unreal Engine. And that's just changing how games are made in the future. So, I mean, I don't really care. Epic's making games anymore. They're really working hard on Unreal Engine.
Outside of the rare gems like Jedi Survivor, It Takes Two, and the Dead Space remake. Ubisoft sells XP boosts in single-player open-world games. And don't even get me started on Activision Blizzard. That horse is beat so dead, so hard, that they call bug fixes Season 2 in Diablo 4.
That just hurt a little bit. Sorcerer.
So while these companies continue to release unfinished games because they can't meet different deadlines that are set by their investors,
hurt a lot.
Time constraints or money constraints or whatever it is, while they continue to lose focus because they're paying attention to more profit-driven incentives than anything else, we, the consumer, have to soak up their misdeeds by paying into microtransactions, battle passes, and worse. And that's supposed to make our games better. But by the time
Another thing is, we do keep buying into these things, and it shows, hey, the consumer actually likes this. But we're never not going to stop buying it. That's the issue.
Any of these games actually do get to a playable state, or, God forbid, make them enjoyable, they're already almost coming out with the next game anyway. That doesn't seem like us helping to support them make better games. That just seems like us being taken advantage of.
Yep.
That seems like the consumer being programmed to continue to pay for things that we're not getting our money out of. And it's making it an expectation. How many times over the last few years have you expected a game
consumer
to
has
actually work?
expectation for game companies, and the game companies have expectations for us.
A1 on release without any issues. If you're anything like me, it's a flip of the coin.
Yep,
When
it
the
is a
coin
flip
landed
of the
on
coin.
heads and it ended up actually working properly, it was a surprise. And I think to myself, maybe they got it figured out. But we know that's not the case. If Elden Ring was the flash of lightning, then Baldur's Gate 3 was the thunder that followed. A classic turn-based
That's a good way
RPG
to
dominated
put it.
gaming headlines. It turned heads and it held attention. Reviewers applauding the game as a resounding success despite the lack of polish in the later third of the game. Why? Is the game that good that it's so far above everything else that we've ever seen? Well, that's a matter of opinion. Personally, I think it's one of the greatest games that I've ever played. But
I do too.
Enjoy tactical combat.
So, the third act not running well, and I'm saying it's not. There's so much that actually goes into it. I'm not surprised that it's hard to run. And with patch 1 and 2, they fixed over 1,000 bugs in patch 1, and then much more and then a lot more in patch 2. You know what I mean? So,
high fantasy and optional multiplayer. But why did it reach such a wider audience? Simple. Widespread consumer dissatisfaction.
yeah.
Players are absolutely exhausted of live service models. In-game.
Yeah, everyone's bored of games at the moment. Of bad games. A good game really hasn't come out. And then Baldur's Gate comes out, and everyone's like, oh, a good game. Let's play it.
Game shops. Buying skins. Microtransactions everywhere in the entire game. Unimaginative design.
I fall victim
Games
to this with
constantly
Valorant.
stealing the mechanics of another game. And while that's completely fine in some different ways, I feel like every open world game is an Ubisoft game now.
True.
You wonder why we love Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate 3 or Tears of the Kingdom. It's just because they're well-made, good games. It's as simple as that. There's no strings attached. It's not some crazy thing that you need to be able to divine. I've seen 5 or 6 different apologies from developers or publishers over
this
the
area,
last year, just within 2023.
New trend.
Trying to figure out, guys, we hear you, we're listening. We'll fix things, we promise. No, you're not listening, because if you were, then you would understand why we are praising these games in the first place. It's just that they're really good games. That's it. And we just want you to go back.
Yeah, they just
to
made
what
good
you used
games,
to do, which is making really good games.
all we want to
the
do is
thing
support these
is that
companies, but they're making it hard for us to do
And
it.
the reason
Exactly.
why they're apologizing, the reason why they're running around with their heads cut off, is because they are trying to constantly figure out ways to be able to match the monetization of the game with how the player is going to play the game, how we're going to enjoy it. Ackman brought it up in a video of his, where he talked about how Diablo 4, everything in the game
Maybe I
has to be scheduled in a certain way.
Maybe I
how
should
fast
watch
we
that
level
video.
up, how
Maybe I
fast
should
we
watch
find
that.
items, how fast we find gear that we like that looks on us. All of those things have to match the
I'm a
monetization.
Diablo
of the
player.
battle
I should
pass.
watch
All
that.
of those things, they all have to coalesce and combine. And that's incredibly difficult to do, especially when you're trying to make something that's actually enjoyable to play. Earlier, I talked about how different institutions and publications or journalists were pushing back on the gamers and our outcry and our outrage, and how they were dogpiling on us, dogpiling on our needs and the narrative of the pushback that we have against the profit incentives of these companies and how we want better games and more complete games. According to the business research company, the global microtransaction market will grow from $67.9 billion in 2022 to $76.6 billion in 2023, which is over 30% of the estimated $200 billion the gaming market will earn in 2023.
Isn't that
It's
insane?
really profitable being anti-consumer, especially
It
when you
is.
start cost-cutting and you're also not held responsible for the state in which your games are released.
I could go make a really bad game out of Battle Pass or something and make a
They
quick
have turned
buck.
our understanding that creative projects are difficult to make and are iterative processes in their design, and made it into a normalization that we must buy unfinished products and wait for them to patch it or release more content in the future. All the while, they're stealing resources from places where they need to go. And what customers really
Man, why do you
end
have
up
this
paying for
character?
is the 80
Hold on. Whoa. Good video. Good place to pause. But why are you rolling with this character, huh? Just a +2 to Dex? You should be rolling with someone else.
places where they need to go. And what customers really end up paying for is the $80 to $100 million that they're spending on marketing budgets for these AAA games.
Well, I mean, Megan Fox was some good marketing.
And it really doesn't help that our regulators, those in government, aren't
He's still
working to protect the customer.
Dude,
Mostly because
someone
either
else
they're
roll
too
this,
old
man.
to understand, or
What are you
because they're
doing?
incentivized not to through lobbying to protect the
There you
interests of
go.
investors and
Jeez.
these large publicly traded institutions. Luckily, there are some countries like the Netherlands who are moving to ban things like loot boxes, and what's great about that is it makes it really difficult for these companies to be able to release their games in, well, just about anywhere once other people start giving them even the slightest amount of pushback. By prioritizing profits, the makers of our favorite games, our most beloved games of all time, are losing touch with their customers. While they may not see the immediate effects of this because the silent majority continues to buy their games and interact with microtransactions,
yeah.
we're seeing a slow shift.
It's because a lot of gamers aren't like, they don't care about this stuff. You know what I mean? They have a long day. I mean, I have a long day at work. I just care about my games, I guess. But they have a long day at work. They have a wife. They have kids. They just want to sit down, play a game for an hour, and maybe, oh, that skin looks cool. Let's buy that.
Spurred by the vocal minority. When you see a classic RPG based on Dungeons and Dragons explode onto the market, breaking all-time records on Steam, you're seeing a greater shift in the market. Social media is much stronger than the AAA industry. Some of the most popular videos on YouTube and TikTok are those complaining about the state of Diablo 4, Overwatch, Warzone, Destiny, 2K, and more. The virality of
Makes
that
me so
movement
sad Destiny's in a bad
goes
spot.
past
I
the vocal
loved
minority
that game.
and into the wider market. As economic strife and rising inflation make it more difficult for people to buy luxury goods, they're far more careful with their spending. They do their research. And when a simple Google search reveals how people...
And speaking of Destiny, I did that reaction to Lightfall, and it did super well. And I didn't stream or record any of Lightfall. And that's just because I'm not having fun with Destiny. Just, I have a lot of issues with the game. And I don't want to get into that in that video.
Trust your game or
Maybe
your
I'll do a
company.
truth about Destiny.
Customers are far less likely to make purchases regardless of how you try to manipulate the market through nostalgia or through marketing. I brought this up many a times on my podcast, which is every Sunday, 2 p.m. PST, right here on YouTube, by the way. But crypto games never stood a chance, and they never will. And the reason why is because they are based on monetization. No matter what they do, they have to start from the monetization first because, well, it's in the name. It's a crypto game. It's not a game. It's a crypto game. And because of that,
crypto games
they'll never
are
actually be anything.
I
Because
can't even name one
what
crypto game.
Great game do you ever remember that they ever started from how are they going to sell it? How are they going to monetize it?
Yeah,
The
that's just
inspiration
bad.
for most games that we've all enjoyed have always been somebody's great idea that it was something that they themselves were going to have fun playing.
Exactly.
A valuable experience that they would enjoy. And that's the whole point of this video. That's the whole point of what this conversation should be, is that we just want to have valuable experiences and have our time valued for playing the games that we get. Now,
I
I've seen
agree
a lot of people
100%.
try to parse out and say, you know, I give $1 per hour value for the games that I play. You know, if it's a $70 game and I get 70 hours out of it, then yeah, you know, that was a good game. No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. Did you actually value the time that you spent in that game? Will you remember it? Was it enjoyable? There's tons of games that you can spend $60 and $70 on and not enjoy. Doesn't mean you got your money out of it. It's not how that works. I just want good games.
Again, Destiny.
That's all we want. We just want our time valued. We want the money that
Yeah,
we
we're
spend
getting
for the
taken
game,
advantage
but
of
we
for
want it
sure.
to actually mean something in the first place. It's really not that complicated, and I don't understand how it's so hard to be able to communicate that to the developers and all of these different conversations.
Because they're
that
not
we've had.
listening. They just see money,
I want to
dollar
experience
signs.
what it was like.
And I feel like
playing-
Nintendo's the worst about listening. Like, they don't know what the internet is. They don't know how to listen to fans. Because we're not getting... Other than Zelda, Nintendo fans aren't really getting what they want. You know what I mean? Especially with Pokemon. But...
Halo for the first time again, or adventuring in Elden Ring, or Ocarina of Time. It's really not that hard. And I don't understand why they're making it that hard. Other than they just want to make it seem that way so that we just keep giving them money and that they can take advantage.
It is hard for them because they're given a deadline. And I do get that. And like I said, the discussion is developers should just be given time to finish their game.
Advantage of us.
Delay as much as you want
And if
is
that's
how
the
I
case,
see
that's
it.
what they're going to continue to do, and that's the path that they
Until
want
it's
you to take,
finished.
that's fine. But they will fail. Because we will go places to actually get valuable experience.
And I do think eventually
Your
we
Call
will
of
get
Duty
tired
stop being
of...
purchased once somebody makes a game that has a far more valued design.
I agree with
Something
that.
the players enjoy more and doesn't take advantage of them. Same thing goes for RPGs, ARPGs, strategy games, puzzle games. It doesn't matter. Every single
And that's a very good point. With ARPGs especially, Diablo 4, huge company, huge game. And then everyone's going and playing EoE because they listen to their community. They put in the game what they want. They spend, you know, it's just... People will actually go find value. This guy's 100% right on what he's saying.
genre that's out there. The next time that there's a game that comes out from somebody else that's not taking advantage of the players, that provides a better experience because you have lost the vision of what it's like to make good games and not think about how you're going to drain the player for every cent they have, you'll lose business. And if you continue, you'll lose yours. That's all I got today. I just wanted to kind of clear this up. I wanted to talk about this for a little bit. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I got some more articles and stuff that I'm going to probably cover maybe next week. I have a review for Baldur's Gate 3 that I'm going to do. I'm calling it a casual gamer's review. That's my thing. I'm going to be the casual gamer.
The casual gamer. I'm going to link this video in the description. It was very well video. Made some great points. You hit the nail on the head. Exactly. We just want value in games. AAA studios don't understand that. It's not the developers, it's the studios themselves. That was a really good video. I would go check out more videos from him. I watched another Baldur's Gate video about it's getting bigger. So yeah. You should all go do that. Y'all have a good one.